How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. The Art of Awareness, Sheep No More. Get it. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts. This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. And I'm going to play tonight for you General Kelly's entire press conference, or at least his statements in the press conference. And you will want to hear this in its entirety. I'm also trying to figure out why my show is not popping up on Twitter, because it looks like it may not be showing up on Twitter. So we'll find out right now. No. So there's a lot of things in the news today that have ticked me off, and so I'm going to talk about some of those things. Feminism and how they're fake outrage at certain things, and certain things they're not. It seems like there was something about slut-shaming there in the past, which now evidently they don't say anything about. And this representative from Florida, Representative Wilson, she's a disgrace, and we're going to talk about that. And evidently, North Korea loves Morning Joe because it's anti-Trump. So let's go ahead and get it started, shall we? How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right, I'm gonna see if I can put this up on Twitter now. I don't know why it wasn't showing up on Twitter before, but yeah, all kinds of weird stuff going on this week with the social media platforms that I use to do this show. Now it seems to be up there, which is really, I don't know, bizarre. Anyway, we got it going now, and let me check this again one more time. Okay, so let's get started. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and I want to play General Kelly's statements that he made for the press conference today, talking about this. Let me pull this soundbite up here. Talking about Representative from Florida, Frederica Wilson, and her disgusting behavior of listening into a phone call. Not only look, they can put it on speakerphone. The family can do that. As it turns out, they're longtime friends with this congresswoman from, I called her a congressman on Newsmax today. I'm not going to apologize about that. But the family can allow her to listen in on these phone calls. There's no law. There's no protocol. You know, they can do whatever they want. But I'm going to listen. I've been warned by people not to say stuff about Gold Star families. And by and large, I'm not going to. I understand. Listen, my father died when I was 13. I know loss, okay? I know what it feels like to lose somebody very close to you. Those of you who know me know my dog Jesse was very close to me. That was very, very, probably the most difficult thing I ever went through. I've lost friends that died over in combat. I had an extremely good close friend that died in, I believe it was Kosovo, when he jumped out of a helicopter and died. You know, I've seen death. I've been around death. I know people that have died. And I've experienced being a family member and having to deal with death. But I find it hard to continue to support people who, when they should be grieving, are politicizing the death of somebody, not even a 2 weeks, 3 weeks, not even a month. I think it's been a couple of weeks since this individual passed. Or maybe it was just, I don't even see, my brain's all over the place right now. But regardless, I find it so dishonorable. And as General Kelly will talk about, and he's much more poised than I am in this case, that was one of the last honorable things that we have. And, you know, the national anthem was something that was very honorable, where everybody would stand together. Football players, basketball players, all the people in the audience, everybody would stand together. You have the military flyovers, and people would, you just feel the strength of the United States when you, and the specialness of this country when you are at one of these events and the national anthem plays. That's been ruined. It's been totally tarnished. Now when people go there, they're expecting some kind of protest. The TV networks won't even, they're not even playing this stuff now. Some of them are going to, they're not going to play the national anthem for their live broadcast of the different sporting events. It's been ruined. And the same thing goes for now when the president calls and is going to try to relay a message, letting these people know that he cares and the country cares and we're grieving with him, but trying to fill them with a little bit of strength as well, talking about, listen, these people, this 1% of the veterans in this country that charge into battle or raise their right hand, they know what they're getting themselves into, and they're honored to be doing it. And they are, when they fall with their brothers, or they, fall, I don't care if it's falling in training. When these people die in service to their country and of God, it's an amazing thing. Now, I don't know if that's how he said it, but that's the message he was trying to convey. I take General Kelly's word for it. And I've got to be honest with you. It was the same thing with the Democratic National Convention when they had the Gold Star family get up there and completely politicize the death of their loved one. It's no different here. I understand grief, and it can make you do crazy things. It can make you stronger. It can make you weaker. It can make you react at a drop of a hat. I know, I've been there. But I'm a little taken back when people will use the death of their loved one in such a grotesquely political manner. These people in Florida have a long-standing relationship with Representative I'm blocking her name out here, Frederica Wilson. They have she's a friend of the family. So when they had this on speakerphone, and apparently the caretaker of this young man, who was either a grandma or aunt or something like that, they were all listening to this, including the representative, and then to go public and make this thing so public. Hold on one second, folks. I just find that so disgraceful. It's just, I don't see that as part of the grieving process, is what I'm trying to say. And forgive me if you're insulted by this, or you think that I'm being insulting to Gold Star families. By all means, I'm not trying to be that way. I'm probably, I'm like everybody else. I'm a veteran. I'm highly supportive of people who've lost somebody in service to this country. It's the ultimate sacrifice. I feel very strongly about that. And if my mother had to go through that, I would have given her the utmost compassion if it not been my mother. In other words, I understand that her reactions could have been all over the place. And I understand that with this family. But we are seeing a cycle of behavior that comes from the left, that comes from the Democratic Party, where they consistently use these Gold Star family members in a political manner. It's disgusting. It's disgraceful. It is so against anything that's good in this country. It's very similar to Tom Daschle after 9/11, when he was the first one to raise the ugly head of politics and start going after people after 9/11 and saying some stuff that just was so incorrect and disgraceful so soon after 9/11. All these people had been killed. I was hoping after 9/11 that things would change, that people would become more together, that people would be bonded better, but that just didn't happen. And a lot of it I put on the Democratic Party's heads. Tom Daschle was a Democrat. And to have this Gold Star family at the Democratic convention using the death of a soldier just so they can blast the president or at that point in time, the Republican candidate, I thought was disgraceful. It'd been different if they brought somebody out that said their child served for the greater good of the United States and we're Democrats and we love this country and our son loves this country and he served for this freedom so we could love that'd be totally different. But to come out and then play this political game to try to get the president spun up or at that point candidate Trump, that's the only reason they came out there, to try to get a good soundbite off of the president and try to get something going. And that's what they did. And in this case, down in Florida, you have a congresswoman and a Gold Star family member, again, on the Democratic side of the House, doing this disgraceful thing, immediately going to the press saying, we didn't agree with what he had to say. Okay, you didn't agree with what he had to say. I can guarantee you his heart was in the right place. Maybe the words came out wrong for you, but, I mean, listen, I don't want to say anything personal about the Gold Star family members, but I do find this behavior disgusting. I'm not going to lie. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it was a family member of a cop that got killed and somebody tried to help them out and they immediately go to the press and politicize it. I wouldn't agree with that either. I don't care who it is. Have some honor. There's no more honor in this country amongst these people. Your child just died, and you're going to make it all about yourself so you can go on TV, so you can spread this stuff all over the place. It's sickening. And this fool, Representative Wilson, wearing this, it's not even a cowboy hat. It looks like a hat that a child would wear when they're on one of those horses that goes back and forth in front of their grocery store. She looks like an idiot. She sounds like an idiot. And I'll tell you what else. Whoever voted for her, you're also an idiot. What is wrong with you people? With the John McCains that you keep hiring, the Paul Ryans, the Nancy Pelosi's, this Representative Wilson, Frederica Wilson. What's wrong with you people? Marco Rubio had the worst voting record in Congress, and yet he gets reelected. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a disgrace to politics and a nasty individual who I think is a criminal. And you guys in Florida, you just can't stay away from these types of people. What is wrong with you? Where did the honor in this country go? Let me tell you something. I know I talk about my dogs a lot. Look, I was with my father when he died. I was 13 years old. I was sitting on the couch right there. My father died right there. I remember when he died, I walked over to him. He'd had a long bout with cancer. He was 41 years old. I remember opening his eyes and looking at his eyes and thinking to myself, there's no human inside this body anymore. I was there. I was with him while he died for 2 years prior to that. When he died, I sat and reflected and was pleased because at 13 years old, I already knew and had a relationship with my Lord Jesus Christ. I didn't make the whole thing about myself. One of his relatives, I believe it was his mom, she comes running down the hallway. The house is packed, and she goes down the hall trying to get all the kids together, and she's screaming, "Your father's dead, your father's dead." It was sick. It was all about her because she was a narcissist. And that's what I see when I look at these types of things. At 13 years old, I saw it then. I remember thinking to myself, why? I mean, I wasn't old enough to really realize, but I was like, why is she yelling this? Why is she stirring this up? I'll tell you why she did it. Because it was all about her. Even though her son had just died, it was all about her. And when I see these Gold Star family members, it doesn't happen a lot, but it seems to be consistently happening on the Democratic side. When I see them stepping forward so they can get TV time and pick a political side, and they utilize the death of their loved one for this reason. I don't look at it as anything different than what I saw as a 13-year-old child. It's disgusting. And I'm sorry if people are going to say, well, you can't talk about Gold Star families like that. I'm not talking about Gold Star families like that. I'm talking about honor and integrity. Same thing that young man had when he went over there to Africa and was fighting on behalf of the United States or doing training or whatever, he was serving for the United States. I'm talking about taking time to mourn and reflect on who this person was in their life and how honorable and great they were. But instead, you want to turn it into politics, and you want to go on TV, and you want to make statements to the press. Now, you know what? You know what's going to happen? And I'm going to be honest with you. All right? People aren't going to think about your son when his name comes up. Now, his friends and the people he served with will, but you know what the rest of America is going to think when they should be thinking about how incredibly honored they are to have 1% of people in this country like that individual? You know what they're going to think about? They're going to think about, oh yeah, that crazy representative with the cowboy hat, and one of their parents or his family members immediately went to the press, and it was disgusting, and we don't really want to get in it. Let's just, terrible. Do people not see this anymore? Are we so blind into Instagram that we're only concerned on the picture that's facing back at us? Is that it? Have we gone down this far? Sometimes I wonder. This country needs a nice ass spanking. And maybe they'll wake up. Maybe they won't. But I can guarantee you this. Whether it's Mother Nature, whether it's a nefarious enemy and they're out there, or whether it's our own demise, a spanking is coming to this country. And I can't say that we don't deserve it. Half of us want to sit around and point out all these things. The other half of us are engaged in these type of nonsensical things. And only 1% of the population serves in the military. Overall, there's about 1 million police officers in this country. I don't know the number of nurses and doctors. Teachers have fallen off the deep end. There's some great teachers out there. But the whole education system is really more or less just a political indoctrination. All the way up through PhD. It's sick. People go, instead of being psychologists and keeping the information that they have about people close to them, which is the law, and not making diagnosis without actually seeing an individual. It's one thing when somebody says, oh, that person's crazy. But when somebody who makes their living off of being a psychologist goes on in the news or something and tries to diagnose the president as in some kind of psychological disorder, where's the honor in your job and in keeping your thoughts to your freaking self in a professional manner? There's no professionals anymore. So listen, I'll say it one last time. I'm not striking out against Gold Star family members. I understand. I've seen death. I've felt the sting of death. I understand that people act and react in different ways, and the tragedy of loss of any kind is very, very difficult. It's the hardest thing we'll ever face in this world. Quite frankly, it's even probably more difficult than our own death, because most people, when they get to the death's door, they resign themselves to, I can't really do anything about this, I'm going. But when you have to face the loss of another, it's the most difficult thing you can ever face. I'm not taking anything away from that. But you should check yourself if you are so focused on politics within such a short period of time after your child or your sibling or your loved one is dead, after doing something so honorable to serve God and country, and you're focused on a phone call that you go to the press. It's sick. And that, I'm sorry if that offends people, but it doesn't work in my brain. It doesn't work in my brain. I can't, and I'm starting to see this over and over, and it's a sickness. It's a cancer that's starting to grow, because not only is this ridiculously disgraceful congresswoman guilty of this, but now the Gold Star families are falling victim to, I don't want to say falling victim. They're making their own choice, but they're making the choice to dishonor their loved one, and it's just a difficult thing to watch. All right, I'm gonna bring up General Kelly's press conference today, and you're gonna want to watch this in its entirety. It's pretty remarkable, and for those of you who don't know, General Kelly, his son was actually killed in the military, and he'll go into that. He's much more eloquent in speaking than I am. So let's go ahead and we'll go to the A block and bring this up right now. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right, stand by 1 second. I got to get this sound hooked up.
So I just wanted to perhaps make more of a statement and an explanation, give more of an explanation than what amounts to be a traditional press interaction. Most Americans don't know what happens when we lose one of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, or Coast Guardsmen in combat. So let me tell you what happens. Their buddies wrap them up in whatever passes as a shroud, puts them on a helicopter as a routine, and sends them home. Their first stop along the way is when they're packed in ice, typically at the airhead, and then they're flown to usually Europe, where they're then packed in ice again and flown to Dover Air Force Base, where Dover takes care of the remains, embalms them, meticulously dresses them in their uniform with the medals that they've earned, the emblems of their service, and then puts them on another airplane linked up with a casualty officer escort that takes them home. A very, very good movie to watch if you haven't ever seen it is Taking Chance, where this is done in a movie HBO setting. Chance Phelps was killed under my command right next to me, and it's worth seeing that if you've never seen it. So that's the process. While that's happening, a casualty officer typically goes to the home very early in the morning and waits for the first lights to come on. And then he knocks on the door. Typically the mom and dad will answer, wife. And if there is a wife, this is happening in 2 different places. If the parents are divorced, 3 different places. And the casualty officer proceeds to break the heart of a family member and stays with that family until, well, for a long, long time, even after the internment. So that's what happens. Who are these young men and women? They are the best 1% this country produces. Most of you, as Americans, don't know them. Many of you don't know anyone who knows any one of them. But they are the very best this country produces. And they volunteer to protect our country when there's nothing in our country anymore that seems to suggest that selfless service to the nation is not only appropriate but required. But that's all right. Who writes letters to the families? Typically the company commander, in my case as a Marine, the company commander, battalion commander, regimental commander, division commander, Secretary of Defense, typically the service chief, Commandant of the Marine Corps, and the president typically writes a letter. Typically the only phone calls the family receives are the most important phone calls they can imagine, and that is from their buddies. In my case, hours after my son was killed, his friends were calling us from Afghanistan, telling us what a great guy he was. Those are the only phone calls that really matter. And yeah, the letters count to a degree, but the there's not much that really can take the edge off what a family member is going through. So some presidents have elected to call. All presidents, I believe, have elected to send letters. If you elect to call a family like this, it is about the most difficult thing you could imagine. There's no perfect way to make that phone call. When I took this job and talked to President Trump about how to do it, my first recommendation was he not do it. Because it's not the phone call that parents, family members are looking forward to. It's nice to do, in my opinion, in any event. He asked me about previous presidents, and I said, I can tell you that President Obama, who was my commander-in-chief when I was on active duty, did not call my family. That was not a criticism. That was just to simply say, I don't believe President Obama called. That's not a negative thing. I don't believe President Bush called in all cases. I don't believe any president, particularly when the casualty rates are very, very high, that presidents call. But I believe they're all right. I gave that explanation to our president 3 days ago. He elected to make phone calls in the case of the 4 young men who we lost in Niger at the earlier part of this month. But then he said, you know, how do you make these calls? If you're not in the family, if you've never worn the uniform, if you've never been in combat, you can't even imagine how to make that call. But I think he very bravely does make those calls. The call in question that he made yesterday, or day before yesterday now, were to 4 family members, the 4 fallen. And remember, there's a next of kin designated by the individual. If he's married, that's typically the spouse. If he's not married, that's typically the parents, unless the parents are divorced. And then he selects one of them. If he didn't get along with his parents, he'll select a sibling. But the point is, the phone call is made to the next of kin only if the next of kin agrees to take the phone call. Sometimes they don't. So a pre-call is made. President of the United States or the Commandant of the Marine Corps or someone would like to call. Will you accept the call? And typically they all accept the call. So he called 4 people the other day and expressed his condolences in the best way that he could. And he said to me, what do I say? I said to him, sir, there's nothing you can do to lighten the burden on these families. But let me tell you what I tell them. And let me tell you what my best friend, Joe Dunford, told me, because he was my casualty officer. He said, Kel, he was doing exactly what he wanted to do when he was killed. He knew what he was getting into by joining that 1%. He knew what the possibilities were because we're at war. And when he died, in the 4 cases we're talking about, Niger, my son's case in Afghanistan, when he died, he was surrounded by the best men on this earth, his friends. That's what the president tried to say to 4 families the other day. I was stunned when I came to work yesterday morning and brokenhearted at what I saw a member of Congress doing. A member of Congress who listened in on a phone call from the President of the United States to a young wife, and in his way tried to express that opinion. He's a brave man, a fallen hero. He knew what he was getting himself into because he enlisted. There's no reason to enlist. He enlisted. And he was where he wanted to be, exactly where he wanted to be, with exactly the people he wanted to be with when his life was taken. That was the message. That was the message that was transmitted. It stuns me that a member of Congress would have listened in on that conversation. Absolutely stuns me. And I thought, at least that was sacred. You know, when I was a kid growing up, a lot of things were sacred in our country. Women were sacred and looked upon with great honor. That's obviously not the case anymore, as we see from recent cases. Life, the dignity of life was sacred. That's gone. Religion, that seems to be gone as well. Gold Star families, I think that left in the convention over the summer. But I just thought the selfless devotion that brings a man or woman to die on the battlefield, I just thought that that might be sacred. And when I listened to this woman and what she was saying and what she was doing on TV, the only thing I could do to collect my thoughts was to go and walk among the finest men and women on this earth. And you can always find them because they're in Arlington National Cemetery. Went over there for an hour and a half, walked among the stones, some of whom I put there because they were doing what I told them to do when they were killed. I'll end with this. In October, April rather, of 2015, I was still on active duty, and I went to the dedication of the new FBI field office in Miami. And it was dedicated to two men who were killed in a firefight in Miami against drug traffickers in 1986. A guy by the name of Grogan and Duke. Grogan almost retired, 53 years old. Duke, I think less than a year on the job. Anyways, they got in a gunfight and they were killed. 3 other FBI agents were there, were wounded, now retired. So we go down, Jim Comey did an absolutely brilliant memorial speech to those fallen men and to all of the men and women of the FBI who serve our country so well and law enforcement so well. There were family members there. Some of the children that were there were only 3 or 4 years old when their dads were killed on that street in Miami-Dade. 3 of the men that survived the fight were there and gave a rendition of how brave those men were and how they gave their lives. And a congresswoman stood up, and in the long tradition of empty barrels making the most noise, stood up there and all of that and talked about how she was instrumental in getting the funding for that building and how she took care of her constituents because she got the money, and she just called up President Obama, and on that phone call he gave the money, the $20 million to build the building. And she sat down and we were stunned that she'd done it. Even for someone that is that empty a barrel, we were stunned. But you know, none of us went to the press and criticized. None of us stood up and were appalled. We just said, okay, fine. So I still hope, as you write your stories, and I appeal to America, that let's not let this maybe last thing that's held sacred in our society. A young man, young woman going out and giving his or her life for our country. Let's try to somehow keep that sacred. But it eroded a great deal yesterday by the selfish behavior of a member of Congress. So I'm willing to take a question or two on this topic. But let me ask you this. Is anyone here a Gold Star parent or sibling? Does anyone here know a Gold Star parent or sibling? Okay, you get the question.
Thank you, General Kelly. First of all, you have a great deal of respect, Semper Fi, for everything that you've ever done. But if we could take this a bit further, why were they in Niger? What was, we were told they weren't in armored vehicles and there was no air cover. So what are the specifics about this particular incident, and why were we there? And why are we there?
Well, I would start by saying there is an investigation. Now, let me back up and say, the fact of the matter is, young men and women that wear our uniform are deployed around the world in their tens of thousands. Near the DMZ in North Korea, in Okinawa waiting to go, in South Korea, in Okinawa ready to go, all over the United States training ready to go. They're all over Latin America. Down there they do mostly drug interdiction, working with our partners, our great partners, the Colombians, the Central Americans, the Mexicans. You know, there's thousands. My own son right now back in the fight for his 5th tour against ISIS. There's thousands of them in Europe acting as a deterrent, and there's throughout Africa. And they're doing the nation's work there. And not making a lot of money, by the way, doing it. They love what they do. So why were they there? They're there working with partners, local Africa, all across Africa in this case, Niger, working with partners, teaching them how to be better soldiers, teaching them how to respect human rights, teaching them how to fight ISIS so that we don't have to send our soldiers and Marines there in their thousands. That's what they were doing there. Now, there is an investigation. There's always an unless it's a very, very conventional death in a conventional war, there's always an investigation. Of course, that operation is conducted by AFRICOM, that is, of course, works directly for the Secretary of Defense. There is I talked to Jim Mattis this morning. I think he made statements this afternoon. There's an investigation ongoing. An investigation doesn't mean anything was wrong. An investigation doesn't mean people's heads are going to roll. The fact is, they need to find out what happened and why it happened. But at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, you have to understand that these young people, and sometimes old guys, put on the uniform, go to where we send them to protect our country. Sometimes they go in large numbers to invade Iraq and invade Afghanistan. Sometimes they're working in small units, working with our partners in Africa, Asia, Latin America, helping them be better. But at the end of the day, they're helping those partners be better at fighting ISIS in North Africa to protect our country so that we don't have to send large numbers of troops. Any other, someone who knows a Gold Star fallen person. John?
General, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your service and for your family's sacrifice. There has been some talk about the timetable of the release of a statement about I think at that point it was 3 soldiers who were killed in Niger. Can you walk us through the timetable of the release of that information, and what part did the fact that a beacon was pinging during that time have to do with the release of the statement, and were you concerned that divulging information early might jeopardize a soldier's attempt at E&E?
Yeah. First of all, that's we are at the highest level of the U.S. government. The people that will answer those questions will be the people at the other end of the military pyramid. I'm sure the Special Forces Group is conducting it. I know they're conducting an investigation. That investigation, of course, under the auspices of AFRICOM, ultimately will go to the Pentagon. I've read the same stories you have. I actually know a lot more than I'm letting on, but I'm not going to tell you. There is an investigation being done. As I say, the men and women of our country that are serving all around the world. I mean, what the hell is my son doing back in the fight? He's back in the fight because working with Iraqi soldiers who are infinitely better than they were a few years ago to take ISIS on directly so that we don't have to do it. Small numbers of Marines where he is, working alongside those guys. That's why they're out there, whether it's Niger, Iraq, or whatever. We don't want to send tens of thousands of American soldiers and Marines in particular to go fight. I'll take one more, but it's got to be from someone who knows. All right?
General, when you talk about Niger, sir, what does your intelligence tell you about the Russian connection with them, and what stories that are coming out now they're supporting?
Russian connection, but I would not, in my position, know that. That's a question for Northcom or for...
Now, before I play the end of this, I just want you to realize something before this finishes, okay? It's about to be over. General Kelly just gave a very poignant press conference and laid out exactly how when a service member is killed, how their body is returned in a very vivid fashion. He said this. He didn't hold back about what he felt about how this one thing that he thought was still sacred and honorable has now been disgraced. He brought up the Gold Star families. He brought up this incredibly disgraceful, narcissistic, psychopathic representative, Wilson, from Frederica Wilson from Florida. And watch at the end of this. This is why I have no respect for the media and for journalism in general. Watch at the end of this question. Do these people honor his request? No more questions. This is a guy who was teared up a second ago. His own son has been killed serving. His other son's serving right now. And watch the response that the media gives his request for no more questions. Instead of allowing him to quietly walk off the stage and sit back and embrace what they have, what he just came out and gave them, watch the response of this shark tank full of media piranha that I don't even think should be in the White House. What's the difference? This is the whitehouse.gov. This is their broadcast off their system. Why does the media need to be in there? I don't think they need to be in our White House, and this is a perfect example why.
Not Northcom or AFRICOM or DOD. So thanks very much. And as I walk off the stage, understand there's tens of thousands of American kids, mostly, doing the nation's bidding all around the world. They don't.
He just said, as I walk off the stage, I want you to understand there's tens of thousands of Americans doing the bidding of the United States around the world. This press conference is over.
Have to be in uniform. You know, when I was a kid, every man in my life was a veteran. World War II, Korea, and there was the draft. These young people today, they don't do it for any other reason than their selfless sense of selfless devotion to this great nation. We don't look down upon those of you that haven't served. In fact, in a way, we're a little bit sorry, because you'll never have experienced the wonderful joy you get in your heart when you do the kind of things our servicemen and women do, not for any other reason than they love this country. So just think of that, and I do appreciate you.
They cut it off on this one. They cut it off. All right, I'm going to play this so you can see the end of it.
These young people today, they don't do it for any other reason than do the kind of things our servicemen and women do, not for any other reason than they love this country. So just think of that, and I do appreciate your time.
No respect. No respect, folks. That type of thing drives me crazy. You can't allow this man who just came up there and gave this poignant brief and says, thank you, no more, and walks off the stage. It's got to be business as usual. You got to continue to yell and scream. Nobody asked one question. They didn't ask one single question about that scumbag representative, Frederica Wilson. Not one person asked a question about that. About was the president's, how does the president feel about this? Would you like, how should we expect you to deal with these congressmen and women that do these types of things? I mean, nothing. It's disgraceful, and there won't be hardly any story about her out there at all. But that right there, folks, that was a leader. That's a leader. And I believe he works for a leader. But for General Kelly to get up on that stage and in order to – that's a true chief of staff. And the XO, which is like the chief of staff, that's the executive officer, the commanding officer and executive officer. The executive officer is the hammer. And that's – you really do, as a CEO, you want somebody – who's probably better than you at almost everything to be your XO. I'm not saying General Kelly's better than President Trump at everything, but he's definitely, that guy is AJ squared away. It's good to know that he's in the White House. I don't like the fact that he said anything good about Comey, but that's a whole nother thing. But that was from the heart, and that was real. So yeah. All right, I'm going to unblock whoever this was here. They may be gone now. Okay. I don't know who this was, but I will unblock you. I guess I can't unblock you. Sorry. I'll get you next time. I blocked somebody on Twitter because I don't even know who it was because I can't read it. But listen, when something like this, this is the thing about this news program, okay? Or whatever program. It's not really news, whatever this is, opinion program. When we're talking about the death of a veteran, or we're talking about this is very important. What you're seeing here and what's being played out with this representative and this Gold Star family member, and the lack of honor and the politicization of a dead soldier. Look, I know that there's things that happen in this country, like a mass shooting and terrorist attack and these types of things, but I'm here to tell you, those things are problems, but they're not the problem. The breakdown in our honor in this country, the breakdown of our government is the problem. And I'm going to go on record as to saying this. Stop with this nonsense about the guy that was on Ellen wasn't the actual guy from Las Vegas, the security guard. Look, people, you don't know. You're making this stuff up as you go along. I don't know where people come up with this nonsense, but you're going to get yourself so deeply locked into conspiracy theory after conspiracy theory, and that's why I blocked this person, because when it's my show, when I ask you to respect me and to respect General Kelly and the other people that are listening to this, what I'm trying to tell you is there's a bigger problem than whether or not that's the same guy that was a security guard in Vegas that showed up on the Ellen show. Quite frankly, I don't care. It could be a complete cover-up up in Vegas. It could have been a terrorist attack, and they're not telling us. What's the other conspiracy theories? That it was a FBI gun deal gone bad. That's probably the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That this guy was with CIA, some kind of mole with the CIA, whatever. Look, here's the facts, folks. That stuff's not... that stuff's bullcrap, but... conspiracy theories or reality, that's not what's killing this country. You know what's killing this country? The fact that a Gold Star general is talking about how his kid died, and you want to sit on here and talk about nonsense conspiracy theories, where you should be saying, amen, God bless, let's give our full attention to this. You want to go down some stupid path, and that's the problem. That is the problem. That we allow these dishonorable people to be elected, that you sit back and get emotional about something that you have no control over. You have no control over any of this stuff except for standing together and having dialogue together and being one citizenry. But you're not going to do that. You're not going to do that because you're too narcissistically engrossed in yourself, in your life, in what's best for you. And you've forgotten the key to freedom. The key principle to freedom is service. It's standing together. Now, I heard, I was on Sean Hannity's radio show earlier today, and I was on with somebody, she's actually a very nice person. Rick Unger was not on there. Rick's been MIA for about 3 weeks. I did my research as I usually do on people, and I hope I get to talk to her about this someday. And I've heard this from other people who are immigrants to this country, that they come here and they say that it's an honor to be in this country and because of the Constitution, and then they immediately go into the process of thinking that the Constitution is a living, breathing document. I have a degree in political science. I was told that in college, that the Constitution is a living, breathing document. It's a lie. It's a lie. The Constitution is a foundation. It's the foundation of our country. It is where the rights that were granted to us by God were affirmed into law and into the foundation of this country. Those rights are not to be trampled on. They are not to be diminished in any way. The Second Amendment, for instance, people want to diminish that. They want to get rid of it. They want to abolish it. They want to make it less. They want to control it. What they don't understand, well, they probably do understand, but what people need to realize about our rights in this country is that they're very similar to the laws and the Ten Commandments in the Bible. They may not be comfortable. They may get in your way of a good time. But ultimately, those laws in the Ten Commandments are there to keep you safe and to keep you honorable and to keep you on the straight and narrow so that your short life here on this earth means something, and so that you have a relationship and build a relationship with God and hear his voice instead of your narcissistic internal desires. That's what the Ten Commandments are about. Our rights in the Constitution are exactly the same. They are from God, granted to us, and instilled into the Constitution, which is the foundation of this country. Yet people that come here, and a lot of people that are born here, think of the constitutional rights as something that is man-made. They are not man-made. They are godly, created, and given to us by God. What is man-made is the Constitution. And what can be completely dissolved, can be lessened, can be trampled upon, is the Constitution. But I have a warning for you. Just like any other great structure that's ever been created by man, if you fiddle with the foundation of that structure will collapse. And so when we talk about the Constitution and we talk about honor and we talk about our rights, they are so perfectly interwoven into that document that if you decrease the honor, or you malign and disintegrate and trample all over the rights, instead of understanding those rights and understanding how those rights are applied and ensured, and how those rights are beneficial to all of us, but in the case of especially the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, people have to understand those rights. The country does nothing to help people understand those rights. It's like, as if we were born into this country and then we're thrown out into the wilderness and say, you better learn to fish, you better learn to gather foods and, vegetables and whatever, fruits, because that's, we're not going to teach you how to do it. It's the same thing with our rights. Parents don't know the Constitution. Grandparents don't know it. People don't understand the Bill of Rights, the amendments, the difference between the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. They don't understand that. They're not taught it. You're not taught that in school. You're taught lies. You're not given a structured understanding of the foundation of this country so you yourself can build a good foundation. It's not happening. So when I see a general on here talking and describing the exact problem that we have in this country, which is the death of honor, and politicians that are just absolute scumbags, Gold Star family members that use the death of a loved one to pump themselves up in media. When I see that happening, and I see people that are not even understanding that the dialogue that could be happening right now amongst those people on the chat sessions could be diving straight into this. Instead, they're talking about whether or not this Campos guy, whether or not his eyes are the same width as the person that was on Ellen DeGeneres' show. It's exactly what the general was talking about. There's no honor. There's no integrity. And this country has become overwhelmingly about themselves. Now, I want to just cover a couple more things here, and then I'll get out of here. So let's go to the B block real quick, and we're going to talk about feminism just real quick and why it's a bullcrap, another one of these subversive groups, Another one of these excuses to divide the people in this country. But I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Let's go to the B block. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it. All right, so there is another representative, Representative Eddie Bernice Johnson. I'm assuming this is a female. She told reporters, so she's a, wait, what? She's a Democrat. Oh my goodness, can't believe that. A Democrat congresswoman suggests in a local TV interview, this is off of FoxNews.com, that women bear a certain responsibility when it comes to sexual harassment, saying their attire and behavior can be inviting. Now, this is the second time I've heard this, somebody saying this. The other person was that idiot Donna Karen, that the clothing fashionista, not changing the world at all. Says that, and this is probably somebody who makes more slutty clothes than just about anybody, and is one of the people responsible in fashion for these types of fashions being out there. And of course, in feminism, it was just a couple of years ago, they were having this whole thing about slut shaming and about how, you know, that's where this whole nasty thing came from. Like, what's her name? Ashley Judd was saying this nonsense that women, feminists stand up and they say, no, you have to treat us right, and we can wear whatever we want. That's why they take their clothes off in public and they protest with no bra on and do all this nonsense, and no shirt, whatever. Doesn't bother me. But they're going to turn around when one of their biggest donors, right, one of the biggest money men, and it comes from Hollywood, that's the disgraced and disgusting pedophile rapist Harvey Weinstein, comes out and is exposed. This weirdo, Representative Eddie Bernice Johnson, Democrat from, and here, let me just tell you, once again, I'm going to give a little bit of shaming to Texas. This weirdo is from Texas, okay? She's a Democrat from Texas. She says that certain responsibility, the women have certain responsibility when it comes to sexual harassment, saying their attire and behavior can be inviting. In other words, it's their fault. It's their fault that that these women were getting harassed and raped and attacked. It's their fault. Don't you see, people? This is a Democratic Party at its best. This is communism at its best. I know I bring that up a lot, and people are like, no, come on now. Listen. Feminism, the gay movement, Black Lives Matter, all these different groups. We go on and on about all these different groups. Black Lives Matter, and I think Antifa has connections with NAMBLA. That's the National Man-Boy Love group. Antifa is a communist group. By all means necessary is a communist group. Yet they associate all these people together. You don't just go see a march on Washington, D.C. with all women. You're going to see Antifa show up. You're going to see Black Lives Matter show up. You're going to see feminism. You're going to see gay rights show up. And the fact is, with all of these people, all these groups, people are being led astray. Just because you have a sexual tendency that is gay doesn't mean that you're a gay person. It means your sexual tendencies are gay. But you want to follow these groups, you're actually following a communist entity that's trying to subvert this country. You live in the inner city, and you have dark skin, and you see violence all the time, and you've seen people get beat up by cops, but you've also seen gang members after gang members killing people constantly, and you want to go and protest the cops when you're doing nothing to clean up your neighborhood, and you blame it on the cops, as though the cops are going out and making people have babies out of wedlock, making people not strive for a future, making people get on dependency and on welfare, and making people deal drugs and do drugs and not raise their kids. That's the cops' fault. according to Black Lives Matter, and the people that support that communist group. But you see, they don't ever go back into those cities, in those inner cities, and clean stuff up. What you're looking at is subversive groups. And this right here is a perfect example of how deep their commitment to unity actually goes. This representative from Texas, this female representative from Texas, is going to turn around and criticize women for dressing a certain way when her donor, Harvey Weinstein, is getting in trouble. There's no depth to it. None. That's about all I have to say about that. Let's go real quick to the, I'm not going to do a C block, C block. I'm just going to bring this up here because I think it's hilarious. See if we can read it up here. Can you read that? North Korean generals love anti-Trump MSNBC show Morning Joe, and they watch it daily. Fruitcakes. I'm sorry. Listen, folks, I'm actually not the type of guy who goes around using words like weirdo and fruitcake and calling people out. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that, you know, I can truly express what I feel on here, and people, you know, like it evidently. But it's just me. It's not just me. I know the answer to this question. It's a rhetorical question. You know, I've met a lot of people from this show. I've drove all over the country in May. I'm going to do it again. I know I keep saying that. I'm going to do it again. I've driven all over this country. I've never met one people. Well, Dave and Sean Robinson, they're a little weird, but I'm just kidding. I love those guys. But I didn't meet anybody that I was weirded out about. You know, I stayed at some of your houses. I met a ton of people, ate with you, broke bread with you, prayed with you. I didn't see anybody that I wouldn't say this is somebody that I could hang out with on a regular basis. I met some incredible people. This, I'm never going to hang out with this. All right, not saying I'm the end-all be-all guy that you want to hang out with, but this is weird. This is just strange. Kim Jong-un, strange. Representative Frederica Wilson, psychopath, strange. General Kelly, hang out with that guy. I'd buy him all the beer that he wants. President Trump, I'd hang out with him. That'd probably be a hoot. Paul Ryan, strange. John McCain, weird. Nancy Pelosi, odd. And I'm not a judgmental guy. But I found that a lot of the times when people are honorable, people with integrity and love in their heart, it shines through the person that they are. When I look at these people that have dark hearts, it just radiates through the people that they are. It radiates. And so it's no surprise to me that Kim Jong-un and his generals like these two. By the way, I don't know if you've noticed this. Let me just show you this real quick. Let me pull this up here. Let's see here. I don't know if you guys ever noticed this. You remember the Abominable Snowman, the show that comes on every Christmas, and this is what the kid looks like. The abominable. It's the guy that wants to be a dentist, right? Remember the little guy? He wants to be a dentist. Let's see if this shows up right here. See that right there? Just look at this right here. Tell me if I'm wrong. Hold on. Stand by. Am I wrong? Is that not the same person? You want to do some, whoever that was, the conspiracy people, you want to do some, checking of the face and stuff, do it with this right here. Joe Scarborough is that dentist kid, the one that wanted to be a dentist, but found the abominable snowman or whatever that was. Anyway. What did I miss on here today that I said I was going to talk about? Hey, hit it all. All right. Let's, anybody else got anything? No. Okay. I've got to get out of here. I'm going to do a little bit of working out. Got to get these guns going again. And I got to get batteries for this mouse. Seems to consume batteries like nobody's business. That's one of the reasons why. It's always an excuse why I start late. But I got ready to start the show, and I couldn't do anything on my computer because I had no batteries. So I had to go around my apartment looking for AA batteries. Scrounged one battery that was worth anything out of my remote control, and then I had, I don't know, there's like 4 batteries in here, so I took one out and put one of the bad ones in, so now I have one good battery in here, and it seems to be working enough for me to get this show done. So anyway, there you go. All right, let's go to the truth zone. I'll stop rambling. And by the way, if you haven't shared this show, make sure you share it. If you haven't tweeted it, make sure you retweet it. You see the GoFundMe page right here. I pointed out 2 days ago that we hadn't been getting any money on the GoFundMe page in the past 2 months. And lo and behold, several people came through, and we've raised that up now over $40,000 that we've collected over the past year. A lot of that has been used in fixing the truck, which was, you know, it's a 1999 Suburban. It took some pounding over the trip. That has helped in some of this equipment. Jim DeLong got us some of this other equipment. And it's been a tremendous help in allowing me to continue to focus on this solely. So with that being said, gofund.me/The Experts Roadshow. Go give what you can. Again, everybody on here right now gave 20 or 50 bucks. This show would be able to go for the rest of the year, but that's the problem. One person wants to give something here, and another person gives something there, and if we all do it together at once, it's going to make a huge difference. But it comes down to unity. It comes down to unity. That's all. All right, that's it. Let's go to the Truth Zone. Don't forget about my book, Sheep No More: The Art of Awareness. No, that's the wrong thing. There it is. And it's going the wrong way. Why is it going the wrong way? Nope, that didn't work. Hold on. Doop, 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 doop. There it goes. So the book it debuted at number 5. It then slipped down to, I don't know, it was like number 7,000 because these different books get they get introduced every week or 2 weeks. Then went back up to the top 100. It was number 1 in a couple of categories for the longest time. It's now slipped again. So we got to work to get that book back up. Even though it's not out yet, it's not going to be out until December 12th. The pre-orders are very, very important. I'm really, really striving to get to 20,000 pre-orders before December 12th so we can ship 20,000 books. That's the goal. All right. If we got more than that, that's great. So work with me, spread the word, tell everybody about it. They're going to want this book. It's going to be a book that you don't just read, but you keep it handy so that you can reflect on it in case you get ready to go somewhere and how you need to build your defenses and so on and so forth. So keep that in mind. Let's go to the Truth Zone now.
How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More: The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
All right. I knew something was wrong. There he goes. All right. I don't know if you could hear the difference in the sound, but I certainly could. I pretty much said everything I need to say today. I just want to give one more shout out to General Kelly.
It would have been an honor to be, a lot of times I wish I'd have went in the Marine Corps, and it's going to be something that sticks with me for my entire life. I love being a SEAL, but man, the Marine Corps' got it going on when it comes to camaraderie and the esprit de corps. But General Kelly, I salute you. It would have been an honor to serve under you, and hopefully I get to meet you someday and buy you a beer. You're an amazing, amazing man, amazing father, and an amazing American. And I think the world and the United States owes you a tremendous amount of gratitude for what you do, what you've done, and the tone at which you speak to people. I have yet to master that tone. I'm more of a bull in a china shop, and you're more of a Gandalf in a china store. So to each their own. But thank you, sir, and thank you, President Trump, for hiring such a great man. Folks, like I said earlier, I don't have to tell you what's right or wrong or who's good or bad. Just like internally you know when you're doing right and you're doing wrong. It's an instinctual understanding. A person knows when they're doing something nefarious. It's just like the fact that human beings know that there's a God that created them in this world. Human beings intrinsically are drawn to know their God. That's why atheists argue so bad about it. I want to show you this picture on the way out, and it should be profound to you. Look at this picture. This is a male bird, a baby bird that's falling. I don't know which one's the male, which one's the female, but holding on for dear life, holding on to the beak of this bird, this baby, while the other bird is trying to push it in an attempt to save it from falling. When I saw this picture the other day, I was profoundly touched by this, because I think this is a perfect representation of what we should be emulating as human beings. Whether it's your child, your neighbor, a friend, a coworker, a liberal, or a conservative. We are all going to have down times, and it is up to us, because we are on this planet, which I've shown you before. That little dot right there in that light, that's us. We're all there together, folks. This is where it's at right here. Let's stand together. Let's help each other out. God put these animals on this earth not only for us to consume, but for us to learn from. Now let's do that. I'm Jonathan Gillum. My old buddy Rico's down there asleep. As always, I'll see you tomorrow for the Friday Night Toast. Remember, wherever you see this face, the truth has arrived. I'm Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.